Welcome to the Art History 2 Final Study Guide. Make sure you know your color theory and what these colors are, how they are grouped together. For example, complementary color. There are 3 pairs of complementary colors: red and green, blue and orange, yellow and purple. They can clash, and at the right intensity, if you put them next to each other, they can vibrate. But they can also work together beautifully. So they're very special color combinations. Analogous colors are they're closely interrelated color families bounded by 2 primary colors. So you have to think of 2 primary colors, say yellow and then blue, and say one set of analogous colors would be yellow, and all the possible greens you can go to get to blue. They blend back and forth easily together because they're interrelated, okay? But you stop at the 2 primary colors that you've chosen, all right? So if you chose red and yellow, you say red and all the possible oranges going to yellow. But on your exam, I want you to actually name the colors, not just say all the possible oranges going to red, okay? Monochromatic color use is using one color with black and or white. And we'll talk about the rest of these later on in the study guide, but except for art's sake. Art for art's sake started around the year 1900, and that means that art need have no deeper meaning like social meaning, historical meaning, personal meaning, nothing other than an investigation of the formal elements like line and color and shape or form or whatever it is, and or the media of the artist's choice. Okay, that's it. So that, when you see art that's sort of dry looking, sort of like, what's the meaning of it? It simply may be the artist playing with color and shape, or they're trying out a new media like a new filmmaking technique or a new computer art media or whatever it is. Okay, that's art for art's sake. Pointillism is the use of that optical color. Optical color is color that isn't really there, but we as the viewer step back and mix for the artist with using our optic nerve and our brain. Okay, so Seurat devised this painting style called pointillism in the French Impressionist time period, and that's simply pure colors, dots of color placed next to each other, and we step back and mix it in our head. So he's used optical color here and used it as this painting style, small dots of color. Tenebrism is the use of extreme contrast in a realistic, like painting or photograph, that was invented during the Baroque period. It's still used today, of course. It's an attention getter in art. That's the artist saying, this is important. But in the Baroque, it's also meant to be used to heighten the emotion and or that ultimate moment of drama during an event. That's what tenebrism is used for, okay? And that's what the Baroque was all about. The emotional conveyance and the ultimate moment in time, okay? Here, this Zubeiran piece with St. Francis in meditation. He's in conversation with the Lord, and that's probably the strong light that we see there. But he's holding and thinking about his own mortality because he's got that skull in his hands as he looks up to the Lord. The Grand Manner portraiture. Okay, like this one here by Reynolds, this Lord Heathfield piece. He is meant to look heroic in this piece, and the artist has achieved that several ways. First of all, he's placed in the very front of the composition. He's the largest thing in it, and the strongest contrast is on him versus the background, where the battle scene has been won as he stands victorious on that scene of battle. Notice how low the horizon line is in this painting. That's used as a device to make Lord Heathfield even seem more heroic, larger than life, okay? but it's also meant to reinforce that neoclassic idea of civic duty and sacrifice, especially important for the aristocracy or the ruling class. As noblesse oblige is the French term. That means that nobility means you come with a responsibility. You are required to fulfill your social status either through giving to the poor or leading your country in battle or defending your people, that kind of thing. You're called upon to do more because you've been given more in life. Bernini's Apollo and Daphne during the Baroque period. This may actually have been on your midterm study guide, but it's back again. Here we have this ultimate moment in time captured in this sculpture. Apollo looks down in the world and falls in love with Daphne, and he assumes human form and he comes down and he chases her because he wants to make her his own. Okay, and she runs from him and pleads to the gods to save her from this fate because she doesn't know Apollo from anybody. And Zeus, in his mercy, looks down and changes her into a laurel tree on the spot. Well, what do we have going on here? Well, we've got everything in motion because that's conveyed by the diagonal forms of the line of the diagonal line of that arms, legs, hair, drapery. Everything is on the diagonal, which conveys movement. And we see the texture of the leaves starting to sprout from her fingers and her hair tips, as well as the texture of the lower tree trunk beginning to envelop her lower body and the roots springing from her toes. We're watching that ultimate moment in time when she's being transformed. And that's what the Baroque was all about. Here's the supportive information. Goya is here from the Romantic period, mostly to talk about how his artwork changed thematically over the course of time due to his personal biography and what happens to him and his country. Here in this time period, 1800, he's the court painter to the King of Spain. And he's even so friendly and on such good relationship with him, the king, that Goya paints himself into this family portrait. He's back there in the background up in the left. Here we have the strong tenebrism being used here to highlight the family's faces, and it sparkles on their rich brocaded trappings of office and their beautiful luxurious costumes. They wear that because they're the royal family, and Spain is a wealthy country. They want to show off that Spain is prosperous. Okay. But then the king gets the country involved in a disastrous long-term war with France. Well, Napoleon had part of that too. And Goya's viewpoint about his feelings towards the king changed dramatically. Okay, he sees the atrocities in war, and he paints not only a bunch of paintings about it, about man's inhumanity to man, but also he did a series of prints called The Disasters of War that showed the brutality that he's seen and experienced and heard about. Goya will eventually try to even usurp the king and try to establish a sort of a republic, but that gets put down. And during the war, Goya even goes to France and paints for the king of Spain, the court of Spain. Of France. He goes to France, and he's sort of a little bit of a traitor. Okay. He comes back to Spain, and he's actually in prison for a while. He goes deaf early on in his life, and he starts to lose his family. His children, almost all of them, die during the course of the war through illness and war and disease. And Goya slowly goes mad. Before he does that, he does a series of black paintings in his exile, shall we say. And here we have it on a sample of one on the left here, Saturn devouring his children. We've got the strong contrast still in the realistic portrayal of Saturn as he gobbles the head and the arm off of one of his children. But Saturn is really a symbol for the King of Spain. And the children are really, the child that you see here being devoured are really a symbol for the children of Spain. Those are the people of Spain. The king is meant to be a good steward and protector of his people. But according to Goya's feelings, the King of Spain has now gone crazed and mad, and he's, essentially abusing and using up his people and devouring them in a crazed manner, just like this portrait here of Saturn. Here's the supportive biographical information about Goya from the Post-Impressionists. Post-Impressionism was actually meant to go beyond just capturing that instant moment and play of light and color that the Impressionists were about, and they were interested more in some sort of feeling or meaning behind the work. And this is Vincent van Gogh's Wheatfield with Crows. This is his last painting before he commits suicide a week later. Van Gogh suffered from what we think today was schizophrenia, and he was in and out of mental institutions most of his life. He even put himself in mental institutions several times. This is meant to be a snapshot of where he is emotionally and mentally at this moment. We've got the short brushwork being used in this painting all over. It creates sort of this line. And that line that's repeated over and over creates this sort of crazy kind of chaotic movement in the entire painting. The wheat field seems to be flowing and moving in the wind, and the sky seems like it's boiling. But what really is looming up at the very top blackness of that sky are the sky is thick with crows as they begin to come down over the wheat. Crows are usually a symbol of either death or at least a bad omen. This painting is meant to be a snapshot of where Van Gogh is at this moment inside his own head. I don't think he's saying I'm going to commit suicide next week. I think what he's saying is I'm in a bad place. I'm in pain. My emotional life or my mental life and state is in chaos. And something as bad is on the horizon for him. I think he's hinting at that here. One of Redon's noirs, okay, where he explores his interest in the world of fantasy and phantoms and made-up creatures and dreamy images. They all have this sort of very moody look to them. This is hallmark of the symbolists, which Redon was one of them. They thought that real truth and real meaning came from beneath the surface of reality. They're coming right after the realists, and so they think that dreams and fantasies and fantastic poetry and stories, they're the real inspiration, they're the real truth of the world. And most of his creatures in these landscapes and these noirs are very indeterminate. You kind of don't know quite what's going on. They're meant to hit you on a subconscious level. The cactus man actually is growing out of a flower pot. He's got these spiky cactus, spines, just like a real cactus does. But I'm not sure if it's meant to mean that this man has got, he's very hard to get along with. Do you know what I mean? Like he's kind of like angry or disturbed in some way, and that kind of keeps people away. Or if it's meant to represent somebody who's being tortured, much like the Christ was when he wore the crown of thorns. Okay, that ambiguity is part of what Redon's looking for. He wants you to determine what you think the pieces of meaning or react to it in a subconscious way. The light prop for Electric Stage by Moholy Nagy. Moholy Nagy was a Bauhaus artist. And remember, the Bauhaus was all about the beauty of the machine, modern technology, and the beauty of those things, celebrating those things, okay? And they came about in about the year 1919, just after World War I. And they were all about celebrating the new things in the world, the new technologies, new inventions. And when you mention the machine in art, you're going to represent the beauty of the machine with sort of mathematically or geometrically precise art of things, because that makes you think machine. So we've got everything has sort of geometric form, geometric pattern, very limited color use, clean design, and modern materials. That's a hallmark of all of their artwork and architecture. And the prop here we see is really meant to be seen only in the movie, the real artwork. The prop is simply a character in a movie. Okay? When Holy Nagy saw the prop just displayed in a museum as an art piece, a standalone piece, he destroyed it. And that was sued and had to recreate it. Okay? Now, the prop itself sports all the Bauhaus hallmarks. It's got geometric shape and form and pattern, and it moves. It has no color. It's made with modern materials. But really, the true artwork is the film. Black, white, gray. That's the real artwork. But the film, black, white, gray, that's the title, is really an art for art's sake piece. That's all about the formal elements of value, contrast, geometric shape, geometric pattern, movement, those formal elements, as well as an experiment, a visual experiment with the new media of film. Film is pretty young at this time period, okay? Filmmaking, movie making. So he's playing with reverse negatives, double exposures, all types of things like that, because he simply wants to see how far film can be taken. And that's a Bauhaus ideal as well. New media, new modern technology. And this is its counterpoint. And these artists, the Dada, were sprung up in Europe in the same place at the same time. It's the Bauhaus. But they were 180 degrees diametrically opposed to the machine, modern technology, and any of that kind of thing. So much so that simply making anything was considered to lead to the path of destruction. Dada believed in the world of the absurd, the meaningless. They saw the destruction created in World War I by new modern war material and machines as an evil thing, which is why they hated new stuff and making anything. Okay? They were completely rebellious. They went against all kinds of societal conventions. But if you're an artist and you're a Dada artist and you can't make anything, what do? Well, you come up with the idea of a ready-made. That means you go out into the world and you find something that's already in existence and you claim it as art. So Marcel Duchamp went to a plumber, I'm sure a plumbing store, bought the urinal that we see here called Fountain now, and he thought of it as art. It's a piece of ready-made art and as well as a piece of conceptual art. Because Marcel Duchamp thought of it as art, and the viewer's reaction to it, him saying this is art, and ours going, oh, no, it's not, or gee, that's deep, or gee, that's dumb, that's the art too. Conceptual art is all about the exchange of ideas between the artist, this is art, and the viewer. No, it's not. Whatever your feelings are about it. So it's nothing but that, ideas. The thing itself is just a springboard. What we see here, there is no formal analysis because this doesn't really have any real purpose other than just the exchange of ideas. Naturalistic surrealism is when you take realistic, recognizable things and blend it into a dream state, or you kind of alter those real things just slightly and maybe make them out of proportion or whatever, but you still can recognize what they are. And it has this very dreamy sort of setting. That's like this piece, The False Mirror, Renee Magritte. We know it's an eye. We see, though, that sky behind it. That's what makes it different than just realism, for example. And here, it's about he was definitely interested in the treachery of images. When you see representational images, he's thinking you can't always believe what you see. In this case, the viewer is being observed, and we are observing the art as well, okay? And you're meant to reflect upon, can you really know what's inside a person's head? Can you be fooled by what they look like? Are they being fooled by what they see in you? And eyes are reflective, remember. So do they see us truly? Can we ever really know anybody inside? That's the treachery of images. The Harlequin Carnival here is an example of biomorphic surrealism. That was based on really the unconscious as well as the subconscious. Sometimes the arts would enter into a sort of a trance-like state through some method, okay, to get sort of to the very base primary means of expression. And this was all came out of the idea of that randomness that the Dada were about, the absurd. And so their work sort of has this weird sort of, stream of consciousness kind of feel about it. Like we just doing automatic writing. That's what this is about too. Andy Warhol's The Double Elvis. In 1950s, when Elvis sprang on the scene, he was so controversial. You know, he was banned off television. I mean, there were whole campaigns against him because he was considered so cutting edge. He became the king of rock and roll, the ultimate, the ultimate rebel, the new thing. But in the 1960s, he had gone to Hollywood to create a series of ultimately dumb movies. And Warhol decided to do a piece about Elvis in this. Here we have, it's a print, which if you don't keep re-inking your stamp or your whatever you're using to make your print with, it gets the next subsequent images keep getting lighter and lighter and lighter. So here we have the first image on the left of Elvis, and he is got, plenty of contrast in that image, but on the right image, he's starting to fade out, okay? And Warhol is saying to Elvis, shame on you. You're losing yourself. You're losing your truth. You're losing your relevance. You've sold out for money and gone to to Hollywood, okay? You used to be the king of rock and roll. He's kind of giving him a shame on you, Elvis kind of message here. He chose photo silkscreen in particular because he wanted to use an instantly recognizable image in that negative, that photograph of Elvis that everybody would know across the world. You don't have to, everybody knew who Elvis was, okay? So that's one reason why he used photo silkscreen in particular, okay? Here's the supportive information on that.